Hi everyone, this is J. Hope Suis from Hope Boulevard, and I am continuing on in my series of reading from my book, Midlife Joyride, Lovin's a Single Lane. Today we are on Chapter 7. The title of this is Rev Your Engines, Sex and the Sim. Now before I get started, I just wanted to let you know this is not a how-to chapter and there are no pictures. If you have not figured out this portion of your life by now, I cannot help you with that. However, there are some statistics and some information that I thought might be useful, so I did put it all down for you. So, let's get started. The quote for this chapter is from Charlie Chaplin, of all people, and it says, "Your naked body should only belong to those who fall in love with your naked soul." Here we go. If you read the table of contents and flip to this chapter first, stop reading and go back to chapter 1. There's a method to my madness, and all good things come to those who wait. And read a book in the order it was written. Did you know that 85% of males and 61% of female Sims report sexual satisfaction as critical to their relationships and quality of life? In fact, an average of 40% of us report having sex at least once a week. Some married couples can't even say that. As I was collecting this data, my daughter looked at me and said, with a rather disturbed look on her face, "Who are all these old people having sex with?" And my answer was, each other. Almost 80 million Americans came of age during the free love era of the 60s and 70s, and 1/3 of them are currently single. While many of them have grown out of the drugs and rock and roll aspects of their youth, they have not outgrown the desire and interest in sex. In fact, 87% of those aged 50 to 70 on the dating site Our Time insist on physical attraction as a must-have on their profile. While there is some truth to the tale that women lose some of their desire after the age of 50 due to menopause, it is not at all widespread, nor should anyone assume it is inevitable. 62% of Sim women report no decrease in sexual desire, and 7% say it's actually increased. This generation started with an adventurous bang, pun intended, and apparently we intend to go out with one as well. Sims are more likely than millennials to have a threesome by 53%, and a one-night stand while on vacation by 118%. Booking.com just got a lot more interesting. This proves age is not a barrier to exploration and freedom in an active sex life as we age. So what does all this mean for you? How much of this information is useful in your current situation, and how can we be adventurous, satisfied, and responsible? The good news, at least for me, is that the majority of Sims are not just out looking for wanton casual encounters. According to Pepper Schwartz, a Seattle sexologist, Sims are still very relationship-oriented. Emotion is still at the forefront, she says. No one is looking for someone to compromise with. They're looking for love and compatibility. Sex still plays a very important role in the overall gratification rating for couples. It is no secret, though, that men and women view and respond to sex differently. From the initial attraction through to the actual climax, each gender has a unique physiological and psychological reaction. During a sexual encounter, hormones are released that cause two very distinct outcomes. Women are flooded with oxytocin, which is also known as the cuddle hormone. This lowers our guard and makes us more susceptible to trust and feelings of intense connection. Unfortunately, this reaction happens whether it's an impulsive fling or a serious contender. It is the biological reason that women often find it more difficult to separate the sexual act from the intimacy, and why many women find it harder to have casual sex. Men have oxytocin released as well, but in smaller amounts. What men do get is a surge of dopamine, the pleasure hormone. This rush is highly addictive, and one reason why men are so drawn to sex and are driven to have that feeling repeated a lot. All of this is not to suggest that women do not experience intense pleasure, or that men do not connect on a deeper, intimate level. Both are equally true. But it can help explain the motivation for certain behaviors in which we of both sexes participate. Now more than ever, we are a society of instant gratification, and part of that plays out on the cameras of our phones. Over 1 million selfies are taken every day, and even though millennials lead the pack, we Sims are quickly catching up. Another trend we unfortunately seem to be embracing is the sexy selfie, also known as the nude photo. Let me say right here, I'm not intending to judge or censor what two willing adults agree to do. However, I do strongly caution against diving too deep into this pool. There are picture apps and chat apps that claim to be discreet and will erase or dissolve your image. But make no mistake, once your image is released into the airways, you have lost complete control of it. Still, the temptation looms large, and men and women both buy into the thrill of taking a racy shot and sending it to someone, looking for a reaction or validation or a compliment. At the risk of calling out the guys, I do believe men are more prone to ask for such a photo as they are more visual by nature. Some do it to test boundaries, some do it for the rush, and others just simply do it hoping to find an enthusiastic participant. If someone makes this request of you outside of a safe and committed relationship, please give it serious thought and consideration. This is not made from a place of respect or love, just a desire to push your limits and receive a self-serving, immediate reward. You don't have to stop seeing them, but you should set very clear boundaries and keep an eye out for other questionable behavior. Obviously, if you feel the lines have been crossed and are no longer comfortable with this person, then move on. On the other hand, if it turns you on and you find it an exciting part of the dating process, then I can only say be careful. Be smart about what you send, how you send it, and understand that there are risks involved. While we're on the darker side of the subject, let's take a minute to talk about safe sex. In a study done by Harvard Medical School, men over the age of 50 were 6 times less likely to use protection than men in their 20s. With the risk of pregnancy significantly lowered with women in this age group, the use of condoms is almost non-existent. Unfortunately, pregnancy is not the only thing a condom protects against. STDs are on the rise with Sims, and the results from the CDC state certain STDs have actually tripled among the 50-plus age group. I don't share this statistic to alarm anyone, but I do think it's worth being aware. Having an honest and open conversation with your love interest before taking this step is very important. I know some couples agree to have mutual testing done so they're both in the clear and have peace of mind going forward. That may not be the route you wish to take, but everyone should use wisdom and caution. So what happens if during this conversation or after the testing it is revealed that one of you actually is a carrier of an STD? That can present a real set of new and difficult problems. Depending on the disease and/or recommended treatment, I don't necessarily think you should walk away. There are some very good and valuable partners who have made mistakes or were even misled themselves and are left with this reality. I do recommend thorough research and even a doctor's involvement on advice on how to proceed safely. I understand in such an early stage of a pending relationship, this may be too high of a hurdle to overcome. And if there are other red flags and misgivings, please do not feel guilty for walking away. However, if there are outstanding qualities and shared values, be open to the idea of trying to work through this. There are very few people damaged beyond repair, and everyone has the need and desire to be loved and treasured. If you are the one with a condition, it will most likely make you feel as if no one will ever want you, and maybe even make you feel dirty. That is simply not true. It is true, it will be more challenging, but it is always absolutely possible, and you should never give up on your search for a happy ending. On a lighter note, let's move on to how soon after meeting do we decide to dance the kipples. That's an actual term for sex from the year 1796. What surprised me just a little, the Sims are actually twice as likely to have sex on a first date than their millennial offspring. It could be the rationale of more days behind us than ahead, and why wait? Or maybe that daring thirst for excitement throws caution to the wind. Whatever the reason and whatever the time frame, please know you will still have to deal with the aftermath of the decision and what that means for the relationship. The introduction of sex ups the game and intensity level, and unless both partners are cool with the idea of multiple partners, an exclusivity conversation will likely follow. Now that the Pandora's box is opened, let's take a look at the benefits of fidoodling. That one's from the year 1611. It is a scientific theory that we lose approximately 7,000 brain cells a day starting in our mid-30s. That's very disturbing for me for being someone in their 50s. But the good news is, regular sex may actually aid in the growth of new brain cells. According to Princeton University, the more sex, the more brain cells. There are also studies that suggest sexual activity in Sims decrease or delays the onset of dementia. This is connected to the increased blood flow to the brain. Yes, the brain, which improves oxygen levels. During sex, neurons use more oxygen, and in turn, this oxygenated blood supply rushes fresh nutrients to our brain cells. I know, it sounds complicated to me too, but I'll take all the help I can get. And let's not overlook just the sheer fun of having sex, especially at our age. For many of you in long-term marriages with the daily tasks of household chores, finances, and child rearing, intimacy was often put on the back burner or neglected entirely. Or worse, the conflicts and power struggles found their way into the bedroom and affected closeness and performance. When those elements are eliminated, it opens the way for open communication about desires and even unfulfilled fantasies. Sims are less likely to be looking for their partner to meet a need in their daily life and instead wish for them to help explore uncharted sexual territory. So what about the mechanics? It's one thing to talk about having sex, but what are the actual physical changes that occur as we age, and how do they affect our desire and performance? For women, hormone changes associated with menopause can put us on a libido roller coaster. One minute we're hot and ready, and the next minute we're just hot, as in flashes. Our ovaries turn bipolar on us, and we can't decide if we want to smooch or smother our partner. Ovaries are hormone central for our sex drive and produce estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Estrogen works to keep all the parts in working order and running smoothly. As the estrogen levels drop, sex can sometimes become uncomfortable, even painful, and it can take longer to climax. The other important hormone for women is testosterone. Yes, we need that too. Over half of all our testosterone is produced by our ovaries, and it serves the same purpose as it does for men. It is the spark for the engine. This can be a double whammy for us gals when the ovaries are removed or go on strike and lower their production rate. There are supplements and prescriptions for estrogen hormone replacement. However, there's some debate on the long-term effects. Some of that may have to do with heart disease and the increased risk of breast cancer. Some research says the risk is not as high as it used to be, but you should always consult your doctor before starting any of these supplements. There are also topical creams and even over-the-counter lubricants that can work quite well. Men have biological changes as well. Circulation issues and prostate disorders often affect the blood flow and are a major contributor to erectile difficulties. It is a common myth that ED is brought on by stress or anxiety. It can be a factor, but it is seldom the main one. In addition, the side effects of medication used to treat conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure, and heart disease often work against getting the blood flowing in the right direction. Another myth is that some men regularly pop those little blue pills. In reality, very few have even tried them. Cornell University did a study, and of the men surveyed, over half admitted to having some sort of erectile dysfunction, but only 7% had ever taken medication for it. Testosterone is the major player for a guy's passion horsepower. It peaks at around age 30 and then starts a gradual decline. The lower levels can decrease a man's sex drive and also contribute to feelings of fatigue. There are natural ways to boost testosterone, which is good news all around. While we are all taught to limit saturated fats, men should not completely take away all fat from their diets. Avocados, nuts, fish, and olive oil all play a part in increasing testosterone levels. However, sugar intake should be limited as it has the opposite effect and can delay the release of the big T. Getting plenty of sleep, having a safe but steady workout routine, and learning effective ways to manage stress also play a part in maintaining both good and mental health, which in turn will keep you up and in the game for years to come. While there are also non-physical details that both men and women face, such as self-esteem, self-image issues, weight gain, wrinkles, loss of hair, or gray hair. These all play a part in our internal dialogue when it comes to feeling sexy and expressing our inner freak. What does all this scientific medical jargon and emotional matters mean for your new relationship? It means you will have to communicate more outside the bedroom and spend more time in there. Both individuals may find they require a little extra physical attention to get the party started, but oh, what a party! Here are some key things to remember. First, sex starts above the neck in the brain. We have already established that Sims are extremely on board with the shaking of the sheets. That's from the 1500s. With age comes more familiarity and wisdom, so talk to your partner. Discuss what you want, what you need. With maturity, both men and women actually sync up quite nicely. Men see the value of taking more time and exploring the full body experience, as well as more appreciative of the emotional connection. Many women have evolved into becoming more assertive and comfortable expressing what they've learned about their bodies. Meeting a new partner opens up a wide array of inquiry, experimentation, and enjoyable experiences. Remember to be respectful. Never coerce or manipulate anyone to do something he or she does not want. Be honest about concerns and limits and boundaries. There are so many adventures to be explored. Do not pout over one or two. This should be a time of less stress and more time, so use it to your advantage. If you have an empty nest, you can now create a love nest. As I have mentioned, in gathering information for this book, I've talked with several of my friends, both male and female. This topic is so personal and sensitive, I did not find too many willing to tell their experiences. But I did have one friend talk to me about the fear of having sex the first time after her divorce. She had been married for 18 years and had 2 children. For almost 2 decades, she had gone to bed with the same man every night. And while it was true she had experimented with a few partners before her marriage, those were escapades of her youth when she still felt vibrant and sensual. Years of raising children, careers, bills, and building a life crowded out some of that vibrancy. The thin, smooth-skinned girl now had stretch marks, wrinkles, and sags in places she didn't even want to think about. She never really thought about her body, sexual prowess during the final years of her marriage. Like many, the intimacy slowly faded, and when they did have sex, it was familiar and easy, and her husband already knew about her quote-unquote imperfections. It wasn't until after her divorce, when friends finally told her she needed to date again, that it dawned on her she would have to have sex with a stranger. Of course, whoever he was, wasn't actually going to be a stranger, but in her mind, the thought of having sex with someone other than her husband was terrifying. To consider displaying her stretch marks and gravity pulls for the first time was almost more than she could handle. She literally had panic attacks thinking about it. She had almost blocked the entire concept out of her mind. She was so anti-dating, anti-intimacy, that when a new guy moved into her apartment building and started flirting with her, it took her a while to recognize it. She was hesitant at first and moved very slowly, but eventually she did go out with him. She told me after that first date went so well, she did actually start thinking about sex again, and not in an alarming way. They talked about it and her fears, which greatly impressed her. Then she admitted when it was time, it was great. She said their communication and his patience with her reopened this door she thought would remain closed forever. I am thrilled she's found happiness again. The other story came from a guy I know. His was a completely different take. He grew up in a rural conservative home. Sex was not talked about, ever. As is common in these situations, what he did know was gleaned from girly magazines, sneaking into X-rated movies, and of course the much exaggerated stories from older guys, brothers, and friends. Keep in mind, this was light years before the internet, cable television, and porn on demand. He married young and proceeded to have what he felt like was amazing sex. He, of course, was the greatest benefactor of the arrangement, and since it was always a success, he felt like a champ. The well-rehearsed routine unfolded in their bedroom year after year until one day he learned his wife had cheated on him. He was floored. He never saw it coming. When he questioned why, her response was simply, "The sex was terrible." I probably do not have to tell you, for a man to hear those words is just about as devastating as it gets. The problem, as she explained it, was that he was only concerned with his pleasure and his outcome, and never even thought about her needs, which he actually admitted to me was true. He said he simply never thought about it. He didn't stay uninformed very long. He immediately went to the nearest library and checked out every book he could find on sex and the woman's body. I must admit I was impressed with that. Again, this was before the age of Googling anything you need to know in the privacy of your home. He was committed to learning. He was determined to forego pride and set about to study, learn, and then practice his newfound knowledge. He expressed what I have heard over and over from men throughout my life. Once a man learns how to please a woman, his world is never the same, and the universe is a beautiful place. In my research for this chapter, one point kept coming up. We are the generation that is having more sex more frequently, later and later in our lives. Previous generations did not have the medical advances and health knowledge to keep up this activity. We are now benefiting from being able to look, feel, and act younger than those our same age did 20 years ago. The good news is we continue to have the energy to do the things we love. The bad news, or cautionary news, is that many of us may feel pressured to keep up and constantly perform. The playing field seems to have leveled out. We are expected to compete and maintain the pace with those decades our junior. And trust me, I'm all for that. There are many days I feel just as good as I ever have, but I do not want anyone to believe that there is a scorecard to punch or a bedpost to notch. Little blue pills and lubricating serums are nifty aids to enhance our pleasure, but my hope is that we are using them wisely with loving partners in safe environments. I do not wish to sound like the morality police, but I do hope we all use sound judgment with open communication and honest dialogue. Intimacy is a wonderful and unique expression between two individuals, and it should be shared as long as both parties desire. We should see our new love and new sex life like a fine vintage. As the old saying goes, we get better with age. Our past experiences, both painful and joyful, have brought us here today. A relationship is not centered around sex, but it is the one activity and expression that separates all other connections. It is a special bond and a powerful intimacy that, when shared between only two people, is a rare and beautiful gift. Put in the time and communication required to allow it to flourish. Sex does not have to stop at a specific birthday. It is a timeless offering and an expression of love, and a whole heck of a lot of fun. All right, that is the end of chapter 7, and it is also the end of section 2. So we're going to pick up on section 3, and I hope that you will continue to join me. And thanks for listening and watching. Have a great day.